A mysterious bride who never shows her face marries one of Manhattan's most powerful businessmen. But behind her veil lies a secret so devastating it could destroy not just their marriage, but two of New York's most prominent families. Is this really necessary? Nathan Harrison's whisper cut through the hushed murmurs of St. Patrick's Cathedral. His steel-gray eyes fixed on the white-veiled figure beside him, searching for any hint of the face beneath. Victoria Harrison's manicured hand gripped her son's arm. "Darling, we discussed this," she hissed through her camera-ready smile. "The Bennett family's traditions must be respected." Beneath her ornate veil, Olivia Bennett's fingers tightened around her bouquet. 3 layers of French lace separated her from the hundreds of New York's elite who filled the pews, their curiosity practically a physical force against her skin. The weight of her father's desperation pressed heavier than any veil. 2 months earlier, bankruptcy? Olivia had stared at the papers scattered across her father's mahogany desk. How is that possible? The Bennett Group has been bleeding money for the past 3 years. James Bennett's usually commanding voice cracked. The Morgan contract fell through. Our Asian investors pulled out. Unless. His eyes had lifted to meet hers, carrying a weight that made her stomach clench. Unless what, Dad? Victoria Harrison called today. Her son Nathan is looking to marry. The merger possibilities would be substantial. Now, standing before the altar, Olivia felt the phantom weight of that conversation crushing her chest. The elaborate cathedral, with its soaring Gothic arches and gleaming stained glass, seemed to mock the deception playing out beneath its sacred roof. Nathan shifted beside her, his Brioni tuxedo brushing against her wedding gown. Even without seeing his face, she could sense his rigid posture, his barely contained frustration. The golden boy of Manhattan's business world wasn't used to being denied anything, especially not a look at his own bride's face. "Dearly beloved," the priest's voice echoed. "We are gathered here today." Olivia's mind drifted to the night she'd finally agreed to this charade. Her father, glass of scotch trembling in his hand, had outlined the Harrison family's conditions. The marriage would secure a merger, save thousands of jobs, preserve the Bennett legacy. All she had to do was say yes. And keep the veil on until after the ceremony. What James Bennett hadn't mentioned, what Victoria Harrison had secretly orchestrated, was the publicity circus this mystery bride would generate. New York's most enigmatic wedding, the headlines had screamed. The speculation had been endless. Was she disfigured? Extraordinarily beautiful? A foreign princess? If they only knew the truth. Victoria Harrison's voice cut through Olivia's memories. "The rings, please." As Nathan's warm fingers found hers, Olivia caught a glimpse of Victoria's triumphant smile. The elegant woman had orchestrated every detail, from the guest list to the media coverage. Even now, photographers lined the cathedral's periphery, their cameras capturing the moment the city's most eligible bachelor married the woman no one had seen. "I, Nathan Harrison, take thee." His voice was steady, confident. Of course it was. For him, this was a business transaction with the potential for a pleasant personal outcome. He had nothing to hide. When Olivia's turn came, her voice emerged stronger than she expected. "I, Olivia Bennett, take thee, Nathan Harrison." The words tasted like ash. A rustle of whispers swept through the congregation as Nathan lifted her veil, just the outer layer as carefully choreographed, to place a chaste kiss on the still-covered portion where her lips would be. His eyes searched the intricate lace, trying to catch even a glimpse. He wouldn't. Not yet. As they turned to face their audience, Olivia caught sight of her father in the front pew. James Bennett's face was a mask of relief and guilt. Beside him, Victoria Harrison practically glowed with satisfaction, her silver-streaked hair perfect, her Chanel suit immaculate. The architect of this union watching her masterpiece unfold. The cathedral's bells began to toll as Nathan led Olivia down the aisle. Through the layers of her veil, she watched the curious faces blur past. Business associates, society columnists, rivals, and allies. None of them knew they were watching two of Manhattan's most powerful families orchestrate their own salvation, or destruction. As they reached the cathedral's massive doors, Nathan leaned close. "I will see your face eventually, you know," he murmured for her ears only. "Whatever you're hiding, whatever game our parents are playing, I always uncover the truth." Olivia's step didn't falter, but her heart stumbled. If he only knew what lay behind her veil, the scars, the secrets, the devastating truth about how his own family was connected to her brother's death, he might wish he'd never made that promise. The bright April sunlight hit them as the doors opened, along with the roar of the waiting crowd. Cameras flashed like stars, reporters shouted questions, and all of Manhattan seemed to hold its breath, waiting to uncover the mystery of the veiled bride. But some mysteries Olivia knew were better left veiled. At least for now. "Mrs. Harrison, where would you like your things arranged?" The question echoed through the vast penthouse living room, making Olivia flinch beneath her lighter day veil. Mrs. Harrison. The name still felt foreign, like borrowed clothing that didn't quite fit. She turned toward the voice, belonging to Margaret, the Harrison family's longtime housekeeper, and gestured vaguely toward the guest wing. "That room will be fine." The guest wing. Nathan's voice cut through the space as he emerged from his home office. "I thought we discussed this. The master suite is yours," Olivia finished firmly. "And I need my own space." 3 days into their marriage and already the boundaries were being tested. The spectacular Upper East Side penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and panoramic views of Central Park, felt more like an elaborate stage set than a home. Every surface gleamed with wealth: marble countertops, crystal chandeliers, priceless art. And everywhere, mirrors that Olivia had quickly learned to avoid. Nathan crossed the room, his customary confidence wavering slightly. "At least join me for dinner tonight. Mother's coming over to discuss the merger announcements." "Victoria's coming?" Olivia's hands instinctively went to her veil, adjusting its drape. "How unexpected." "Don't play coy, Olivia. You're as much a part of this business arrangement as I am." He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. "Though I have to admit, you're making it far more intriguing than I anticipated." A knock at the door interrupted whatever response Olivia might have made. Margaret hurried to answer it, revealing Victoria Harrison in all her perfectly coiffed glory. "Darling." Victoria swooped in, air-kissing somewhere in the vicinity of Olivia's veil. "I brought you a little wedding gift. Something to make you feel more at home." She gestured to an assistant who carried in an enormous gilt-framed mirror. Olivia's heart stuttered. "How thoughtful," she managed. "I thought it would look perfect in the master suite." Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. "Though I hear you're not using that room? Such an unusual choice for newlyweds." "Mother," Nathan warned, but Victoria was already in full stride. "I mean really, darling." The mysterious veiled bride was delightfully theatrical for the wedding, but surely now in private. She reached for Olivia's veil. Olivia jerked back, knocking into a side table. A crystal vase crashed to the floor, shattering into 1,000 glittering pieces. "Don't." The word came out harder than she'd intended. "Please." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan stood frozen between them, his expression unreadable. Victoria's hand remained suspended in midair, her perfect composure cracking just slightly. "I'll clean that up," Margaret murmured, hurrying forward with a dustpan. "No need." Olivia knelt, gathering larger pieces with trembling hands. "I can manage." "Careful," Nathan said, crouching beside her. "You'll cut yourself." Their fingers brushed as they reached for the same crystal shard. Through the veil, their eyes met, and for a moment, something electric passed between them. Victoria cleared her throat. "Well, I can see you're both settling in." "Nathan, darling, the board meets tomorrow at 9. We need to discuss the Bennett Group acquisition strategy." "Actually," Olivia stood, crystal fragments clutched in her palm, "I'd like to hear about this strategy too. It is my family's company after all." "Oh, sweetheart." Victoria's laugh tinkled like the broken crystal. "These matters are best left to those who understand them. Why don't you focus on decorating your new home? That is, if you plan to actually live in it properly." "Mother, enough." Nathan's voice had an edge Olivia hadn't heard before. "Olivia's right. This affects her family's legacy. She should be involved." Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. "Fine. Though I doubt much meaningful discussion can happen with all these barriers between us." She gestured vaguely at Olivia's veil. Later that night, after Victoria had finally left and Nathan had retreated to his office, Olivia stood before the newly hung mirror in the hallway. Through the veil, her reflection was a ghostly blur, unrecognizable even to herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "How's married life?" Victoria mentioned some adjustment issues. Olivia's grip tightened on the phone. Of course Victoria had already called him. The golden cage was well monitored. Another text appeared, this one from an unknown number. "Meet me tomorrow. Cafe on 82nd. No. Info about Michael's accident you need to hear." The phone slipped from her suddenly numb fingers, clattering on the marble floor. In the mirror, her veiled figure seemed to waver, like a mirage about to dissolve. Behind her, a floorboard creaked. She spun to find Nathan watching her, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he said quietly, "whatever you're hiding, whatever our parents are hiding, we could face it together." Olivia laughed, a hollow sound. "No, Nathan. Some truths would destroy everything you think you know." She moved past him toward her room in the guest wing. "Good night, husband." "Good night, mystery bride," he murmured as she disappeared down the hallway, leaving him alone with his reflection in Victoria's mirror. The cafe on 82nd was nearly empty when Olivia arrived. Her heart stopped when she saw who waited at the corner table. Sarah Chin, Michael's fiancée from 3 years ago. The woman who had been in the car that night. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Sarah said, her hands wrapped around a cooling coffee cup. "Especially now that you're Mrs. Harrison." Olivia slid into the seat across from her, the veil drawing curious glances from the barista. "You said you had information about Michael's accident." "Accident?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Is that what we're still calling it?" She pulled out a worn manila envelope. "I found these in Michael's old things. He was investigating Harrison Industries' waste disposal practices before he died. Specifically their chemical plant upstate." Meanwhile, across town in the Harrison Industries executive suite, Nathan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone pressed to his ear. "I need everything you can find on the Bennett Group's financials from the past 5 years. And look into any connection between our chemical division and Michael Bennett." His secretary's voice crackled through the speaker. "Michael Bennett, sir? Olivia's brother. He died 3 years ago in a car crash." Nathan watched a hawk circle between the skyscrapers. Something doesn't add up. Back at the cafe, Olivia's hands trembled as she read through Michael's notes. Environmental violations. Falsified safety reports. A pattern of cover-ups leading right to Harrison Industries' door. The night of the crash, Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. Michael was heading to meet a whistleblower from the plant. He never made it. The truck that hit us, it came out of nowhere. No lights. No license plate. Olivia felt the world tilt. "You think?" "I think your new mother-in-law will do anything to protect her empire." Sarah reached across the table, her fingers brushing Olivia's veiled hand. "Michael would want you to know the truth." Later that afternoon, Olivia stood in her private room, Michael's documents spread across her bed. A knock at the door made her quickly gather them up. "Olivia?" Nathan's voice. "Can we talk?" She hesitated, then opened the door. He stood there, jacket off, tie loosened, looking unusually vulnerable. "I've been looking into your family's company," he said without preamble. "The financial collapse doesn't make sense. The numbers have been manipulated. Someone wanted your father desperate enough to agree to this marriage." Olivia sank into a chair. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm starting to think we're both pawns in a game we don't fully understand." He knelt before her chair, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his eyes through her veil. "Last night you said some truths would destroy everything I think I know. Try me." "Nathan." Her voice caught. "What do you know about your company's chemical plant upstate?" His brow furrowed. "It's one of our most profitable divisions. Mother oversees it personally." "Why?" "Because that's where Michael was heading the night he died." The words tumbled out before she could stop them. He had evidence of environmental violations, cover-ups. He was meeting a whistleblower. Nathan went very still. "The car accident. A truck with no lights. No plate. Your mother's division under investigation. My brother dead. And 3 months later, the Bennett Group suddenly starts hemorrhaging money." Olivia's laugh was hollow. "Quite a coincidence, don't you think?" He stood abruptly, pacing the room. "These are serious accusations. Do you have proof?" Silently, she handed him the manila envelope. As he read, his face went through a range of emotions. Disbelief, anger, horror. "I need to look into this," he finally said. "If what these documents suggest is true, your mother will bury it. Like she buries everything that threatens her empire." Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why agree to marry me at all?" "Because I needed to be on the inside." Olivia stood, moving closer to him. "And because my father doesn't know about any of it. He's not part of the deception, he's another victim." Their eyes met through the veil, the air between them charged with shared understanding. Nathan slowly raised his hand, his fingers hovering near the edge of her veil. "Let me see you," he whispered. "Please. No more barriers." Olivia caught his wrist but didn't pull away. "I can't. Not yet." "The scars? They're not just physical, Nathan. That night changed everything. The truck didn't just kill Michael. It hit the passenger side, where I was sitting. His sharp intake of breath echoed in the quiet room. You were in the car? Sarah was driving. Michael was in back with his files. I was. Her voice broke. I was supposed to die too. Sometimes I think your mother wishes I had. Nathan's other hand found hers, gripping it tightly. I won't let her bury this. Whatever the truth is, whatever happened that night, we'll face it together. Even if it destroys your family? Even then. He pressed his forehead against hers, the veil a gossamer barrier between them. I'm starting to think some things are worth destroying to rebuild properly. In the growing darkness of the room, they stood together, two people caught in a web of family secrets and corporate crimes, finding unexpected trust in each other's shadows. Outside, storm clouds gathered over Manhattan, promising to break the unseasonable heat. Neither of them noticed Victoria Harrison's sleek town car pulling away from the curb below, or her figure in the back seat, phone pressed to her ear. We have a problem. They're getting too close to the truth. The numbers don't lie, Nathan. Roger Coleman, Harrison Industries' aging CFO, spread financial documents across the mahogany conference table. The Bennett Group's collapse was engineered. Someone systematically scared away their investors, called in loans and manipulated market perceptions. This wasn't bad business, it was assassination. Nathan stared at the evidence before him, his mother's elegant handwriting in the margins of several documents. And the puppet master? Signs point to Victoria Harrison Consulting. Roger's voice dropped. Your mother's private consulting firm. The one she claimed was dormant. A sharp knock interrupted them. Victoria swept in, immaculate in Chanel, her smile freezing as she saw the papers scattered across the table. Private meeting? Her voice could have chilled champagne. Actually, mother, perfect timing. Nathan held up a document. Care to explain why your dormant consulting firm orchestrated the Bennett Group's downfall? Across town, in the Bennett Group's emptying offices, Olivia stood in her father's doorway, her veiled presence startling him from his whiskey glass. The company's not just bankrupt, is it, Dad? Her voice was steel. It was murdered. James Bennett aged a decade before her eyes. Olivia, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. She placed Michael's files on his desk. Victoria Harrison destroyed us because Michael discovered what Harrison Industries was hiding. And you? Her voice caught. You gave me to them anyway. Back in the Harrison conference room, Victoria's laugh was silk over steel. Orchestrated? Darling, I simply advised some key players about the Bennett Group's vulnerabilities. After your chemical plant killed Michael Bennett. Nathan's words hit like bullets. A convenient way to silence a whistleblower and acquire a rival company, wasn't it? Victoria's composure cracked just slightly. Who told you? She stopped, eyes narrowing. The veiled bride. Of course. I should have known she'd be trouble. The trouble, mother, is decades of environmental crimes. Nathan's hand slammed down on the files. Michael Bennett discovered it and you had him killed. Killed? Victoria's laugh was brittle. It was a tragic accident. If you're suggesting... The truck had no plates, mother. No lights. And afterward, you systematically destroyed their company until James Bennett had no choice but to offer his daughter in marriage. Nathan's voice dripped contempt. Tell me, did you know Olivia was in the car that night too? Was her survival an inconvenience to your plans? In James Bennett's office, the confrontation was equally explosive. Victoria promised the merger would save us, James pleaded. The jobs, the legacy. The legacy? Olivia's laugh was bitter. Our legacy died with Michael. You just sold your daughter to his killers. No. James stood, swaying slightly. Victoria swore she had nothing to do with the accident. She offered a solution. After creating the problem, Olivia grabbed Michael's files. Look at the evidence, Dad. The chemical spills, the cover-ups, the deaths. Michael was going to expose it all. Then suddenly he's dead and our company starts falling apart. James sank back into his chair, face ashen. Oh God, what have I done? You want to know the worst part? Olivia's voice broke. Nathan's been investigating too. He found proof that Victoria's firm orchestrated our bankruptcy. She played you, Dad. Used your grief and desperation against you. A soft knock interrupted them. Nathan stood in the doorway, his face grim. Mr. Bennett, he said quietly. We need to talk. Victoria's voice cut through the air. Nathan, don't you dare. She appeared behind him, but froze at the sight of Olivia. For a moment, four people stood locked in a tableau of betrayal and revelation. Well, Victoria recovered first. Isn't this cozy? A family reunion. The game's over, Mother. Nathan moved to stand beside Olivia. We have proof of everything. The chemical spills, Michael's murder, the corporate sabotage. Proof? Victoria's smile was razor sharp. Darling, I've been managing corporate empires since before you were born. There is no proof. Only paper. She pulled out her phone. Speaking of which, the office phones began ringing. James's computer chimed with urgent emails. What did you do? James whispered. Called in the Bennett Group's remaining loans. Victoria's eyes glittered. You have 24 hours to pay in full, or everything goes to auction. Unless what? Olivia's hands clenched into fists. Unless Nathan remembers where his true loyalties lie. Victoria turned to her son. Darling, you have a choice to make. Back away from this witch hunt, or watch your new family lose everything. Including that charming townhouse your father-in-law remortgaged for his daughter's medical bills after the accident. The color drained from James's face. You promised that would remain private. I promise many things, James. Keeping those promises depends entirely on others' cooperation. Nathan looked between his mother and his wife, the weight of empire and truth hanging in the balance. Through Olivia's veil, he could see her eyes pleading with him. You're right, Mother. His voice was eerily calm. I do have a choice to make. He pulled out his own phone, dialing quickly. Susan? Execute Protocol Phoenix. Yes, immediately. Victoria's smile faltered. What are you doing? Transferring controlling interest of Harrison Industries to the board of directors. Effective immediately. His smile matched his mother's for sharpness. A fail-safe father built in after your last corporate takeover. I never thought I'd need it. You wouldn't dare. Victoria's voice shook. Everything I've built is built on corpses and lies. Nathan took Olivia's hand. It ends now. The phones began ringing again, different calls this time. Victoria's phone buzzed repeatedly. Mr. Harrison? His secretary's voice on speakerphone. The FBI is here. They're asking about the upstate chemical plant. In the sudden silence, paper empire crumbling around them, Victoria Harrison finally looked her age. You fools, she whispered. You have no idea what you've done. No, Mother. Nathan's grip on Olivia's hand tightened. For the first time, we know exactly what we're doing. Thunder cracked outside, and the Manhattan skyline disappeared behind sheets of rain, washing away the last vestiges of secrets long buried. You can't hide in there forever, Nathan called through the guest room door. The families are expecting us for dinner. Inside, Olivia stood before her mirror, fingers tracing the edge of her veil. After yesterday's confrontation, Victoria had somehow managed to wrangle both families into a conciliatory dinner at the Harrison mansion. A peace offering, she'd called it. But Olivia knew better. Wounded predators were the most dangerous. I'm not hiding, she replied. I'm preparing. For battle? His laugh was strained. It's just dinner. With Victoria Harrison? Everything's a battle. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Nathan's voice came softer. Let me in, Olivia. Please. Something in his tone made her hesitate. Since yesterday's revelation about his mother's crimes, something had shifted between them. The door clicked open. Nathan stepped in, then stopped short. Olivia wore a deep blue evening gown, the veil a darker shade that made her eyes seem to float in shadow. But what caught his attention was the slight gap at her neck, where the fabric had slipped. A glimpse of scarred skin. She noticed his gaze and quickly adjusted the veil, but the image was seared into his mind. Not horror, as she clearly feared, but a deep ache of understanding. We don't have to go, he said quietly. Yes, we do. Her voice was steel. Your mother's already spinning yesterday's events. If we don't appear, she'll use it against us. An hour later, they entered the Harrison mansion's formal dining room. Victoria held court at the head of the table, James Bennett seated to her right like a prisoner at his own execution. Other family members filled the remaining seats. Cousins, aunts, business partners, all witnesses to whatever game Victoria was playing. Darling. Victoria rose, air-kissing near Olivia's veil. That shade of blue is stunning. Though wouldn't you be more comfortable without the veil? Among family? The room went silent. Nathan's hand tightened on Olivia's waist. I'm quite comfortable, thank you, Olivia replied smoothly, taking her seat. Dinner proceeded like a choreographed dance of daggers. Victoria directed the conversation with surgical precision, dropping casual references to family loyalty, corporate stability, and the unfortunate misunderstandings of yesterday. I mean really, she laughed, wine glass glinting, accusations of corporate espionage? Environmental crimes? Our legal team is quite amused. I'm sure they are, Nathan cut in. Almost as amused as the FBI agents who visited our offices this morning. The crystal chandelier seemed to dim. Victoria's smile never wavered. A routine inquiry, nothing more. Though it does make one wonder about the source of such inflammatory allegations. Her gaze fixed on Olivia's veil. James Bennett shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps, Victoria continued, if we could all be more transparent with each other. Transparent. Olivia's laugh was sharp. Like the transparency of your consulting firm's role in destroying my family's company? Olivia, James warned, but she was done being silent. Or the transparency of the truck that killed my brother? The one without lights or license plates? My dear, Victoria's voice dripped honey, grief can make us see conspiracies where none exist. Your tragic accident. It wasn't an accident. Nathan's quiet words cut through the room. And we both know it, Mother? Victoria's composure cracked just slightly. Nathan, darling, surely you don't believe. I've seen the evidence. The falsified environmental reports. The timing of Michael's death. The systematic destruction of the Bennett Group. Evidence? Victoria laughed. A few misleading documents? Some coincidental timing? She turned to the table at large. You see what this girl has done? Turned my own son against me with her lies and manipulations, hiding behind her veil like some gothic heroine. In one fluid motion, she stood and reached for Olivia's veil. Several things happened at once. Nathan surged to his feet. James Bennett shouted, "No!" Olivia jerked back, her chair tipping. And as Victoria's fingers caught the edge of the veil, a glass of red wine appended, spreading like blood across the white tablecloth. For a fraction of a second, the veil lifted. Nathan caught a glimpse of angry red scars crossing his wife's face, a map of that terrible night etched in flesh. Then Olivia wrenched away, the veil falling back into place, and ran from the room. The silence was deafening. Well, Victoria smoothed her dress, now we know what she's hiding. Really, Nathan, you can't possibly want. Want what, Mother? His voice was deadly quiet. A wife who bears the scars of your crimes? Who survived your attempt to silence the truth? Nathan. James Bennett stood, swaying. You can't speak to your mother that way. Why not? Because she holds your debts? Because she promised to save your company after engineering its destruction? Victoria's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful child. Everything I've done, every move, every sacrifice, was to protect our legacy. Your legacy? No. Nathan looked at his mother as if seeing her for the first time. It was to protect your power. And now you've lost it all. He turned to leave, then paused. The FBI isn't just investigating the chemical plant, Mother. They're looking into Michael Bennett's death. And this time there won't be any cover-up. As he walked out, Victoria called after him, She'll never be one of us, Nathan. That girl, with her scars and her vengeance, she'll destroy everything we've built. Nathan didn't look back. Maybe some things need to be destroyed to be rebuilt, right? He found Olivia in the mansion's garden, moonlight silvering her veiled figure. As he approached, she spoke without turning. Now you know what the accident did to me. What your mother tried to hide. I know more than that. He moved to face her. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. And I know that whatever's behind this veil doesn't change how I feel. Her laugh was bitter. And how do you feel, Nathan? When your mother's right about one thing, I am here for vengeance. No. He reached for her hand. You're here for justice. And so am I. Above them, clouds parted, revealing a sky full of stars. And somewhere in the mansion, Victoria Harrison made a phone call that would change everything. Execute contingency plan Delta. Yes, all of it. It's time to remind everyone what happens to those who challenge the Harrison empire. Nathan stared at the security footage playing on his laptop, his knuckles white against the desk. The timestamp read 11:42 p.m., the night of Michael's accident. A black truck with missing plates pulled out of Harrison Industries' upstate facility. The driver's face was unclear, but the Harrison Industries logo was unmistakable. Play it again, he told his private investigator, Jack Morris. Nathan, I've seen enough corporate takedowns to know, this is just the beginning. Jack pulled out more files. Your mother's electronic trail. Burner phones. Wire transfers. All leading to a private security firm the night of the accident. A soft knock interrupted them. Olivia stood in the doorway of Nathan's home office, still veiled but somehow more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. "Sarah called," she said quietly. "The whistleblower Michael was meeting that night, they're ready to talk." The drive upstate was silent, heavy with anticipation. They found Thomas Wheeler, former Harrison Industries environmental supervisor, in a small diner off Route 9. His hands shook as he pushed a USB drive across the table. "I gave a copy to Michael that night," he said, eyes darting between them. "Complete records of the illegal chemical dumping. Soil samples. Internal memos. Everything." "Why come forward now?" Nathan asked. Wheeler's laugh was hollow. "Because your mother's contingency plan included sending people to my house last night. My kids were home." He looked at Olivia. "Michael was trying to protect people. Look what it got him." Back at the penthouse, the evidence was overwhelming. Years of environmental violations, falsified reports, and emails, dozens of emails, showing Victoria's direct knowledge and cover-up. "She knew," Nathan whispered, reading through the correspondence. "She knew everything. The dumping, the cancer clusters in nearby towns, all of it. And when Michael threatened to expose it, she had him killed," Olivia finished, "and made it look like an accident." Nathan turned to her, his face devastated. "Olivia, I'm so..." "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't apologize for her. But I was part of it. The company, the cover-ups, the marriage. I played my role perfectly. We both did." Olivia moved to the window, Manhattan's lights blurring through her veil. "I married you for revenge, Nathan. To get close enough to prove what your mother did." The silence stretched between them, years of manipulation and pain crystallizing into this moment. "And now?" His voice was rough. "Now that we have proof?" "Now?" She turned to face him. "Now I don't know anymore. Because somewhere between plotting revenge and discovering the truth, I made the mistake of falling in love with you." The confession hung in the air like shattered glass. "A mistake." Nathan stepped closer. "Is that what this is? Isn't it? Your mother killed my brother. My father sold me into this marriage. We're both pawns in a game that's destroyed both our families. Then let's end the game." He reached for her veil, but she stepped back. "You don't understand," she whispered. "The scars, they're not just from the crash. They're a reminder of everything I lost that night. My brother. My face. My trust in the world. Show me." His voice was gentle. "Please, Olivia. No more barriers." Her hands trembled as she reached for the veil. "Once you see, you can't unsee it." "I don't want to unsee you. Any part of you." Slowly she lifted the veil. Nathan's breath caught. Angry red scars crossed her face like lightning, telling the story of that terrible night in brutal clarity. But her eyes, those remarkable eyes he'd only glimpsed through lace, held him transfixed. "You're beautiful," he whispered. She tried to turn away, but he caught her face in his hands. "Listen to me. These scars? They're proof of your survival, your strength. And I love every mark, every story they tell. Even knowing they're your mother's doing? Especially then." His voice hardened. "Because tomorrow we're taking everything to the FBI. The environmental crimes, the cover-up, Michael's murder, all of it. And then we're rebuilding both our families' legacies. The right way." Olivia's laugh was watery. "Your mother will fight back. She still has contingency plans. Let her try." He pulled Olivia closer. "We have something stronger than her schemes. We have the truth." As if on cue, both their phones buzzed. Breaking news alerts lit up their screens. Harrison Industries under federal investigation. Environmental scandal rocks Manhattan elite. CEO Victoria Harrison named in federal probe. "It's starting," Olivia whispered. Nathan's phone rang, his mother's private line. He let it go to voicemail, holding Olivia instead. "Are you ready for what comes next?" he asked. "Once this breaks, both our families will be under siege." Olivia touched her uncovered face, feeling the scars that had hidden behind silk for so long. "I've been hiding from the world since the accident. From the truth. From myself." She met his eyes. "I'm done hiding." The phones kept ringing as Manhattan's newest scandal broke wide open. But in the penthouse high above the city, two people held each other, their shared wounds finally beginning to heal. Victoria's voicemail played in the background. "Nathan, darling, if you think this little power play will work, just remember I taught you everything you know about destroying people. And I still have one card left to play." They let the threat echo into silence. Tomorrow would bring chaos, reporters, investigators, family recriminations. But tonight, in this moment, truth weighed lighter than secrets ever had. Victoria's one card left to play arrived at dawn, a media circus outside the Harrison penthouse. Somehow, photos of Olivia's scarred face had been leaked to every major news outlet in New York. Mystery bride unveiled, the scarred face of Manhattan's most talked about marriage, Beauty and the Beast. Harrison Heir's disfigured wife revealed, sources claim, bride scars connected to Harrison Industries scandal. Don't look, Nathan said, trying to pull Olivia away from the TV screen, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from her own face splashed across every channel. These were private medical photos, she whispered. From right after the accident. Only the hospital had. She stopped, realization dawning. Your mother. She had access to everything once the marriage was arranged. The elevator chimed. James Bennett burst in wild-eyed. Olivia, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I never thought she'd what, Dad? Expose my scars to the world? Like she exposed our company's weakness? Like she exposed Michael's investigation? Olivia's voice rose with each question. When will you stop being surprised by what Victoria Harrison is capable of? That's not fair, he started, but the elevator chimed again. Victoria swept in, immaculate despite the early hour. Oh good, we're all here. Though darling, she looked at Olivia's unveiled face, why bother hiding anymore? The whole world knows what you look like now. Nathan stepped forward, but Olivia caught his arm. No. Let her speak. Let's hear your endgame, Victoria. Endgame? Victoria laughed. Darling, this is just self-preservation. You and Nathan thought you could destroy everything I've built? I'm simply returning the favor. She held up her phone, showing more headlines. The press is particularly interested in how these scars might be connected to certain industrial accidents. You mean my brother's murder? Olivia's voice was ice. Alleged murder, Victoria corrected. Though the media seems more fascinated by the Beauty and Beast angle. The disfigured bride, the handsome heir. It's all very gothic, isn't it? Enough. Nathan's shout startled them all. You've gone too far, Mother. Those photos were insurance. Victoria's smile was cold. Now here's what's going to happen. Nathan will release a statement supporting Harrison Industries and denouncing these ridiculous allegations. Olivia will file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The Bennett Group will quietly dissolve, and everyone will move on with their lives. Or, Olivia asked, or I release phase 2 of the photos. The ones from the accident scene. Michael's death in full color. Every gruesome detail splashed across the internet. How do you think the public will react to that? James Bennett lunged forward. You evil. Careful, James. Victoria's voice was silk. Remember who holds your debts. Not anymore. Nathan's quiet words cut through the tension. While you were busy with your media circus, Mother, I've been busy too. He nodded to Olivia, who pulled out her phone. A new headline flashed across the TV. Harrison Heir transfers controlling interest to independent board. Below it, Bennett Group debts acquired by anonymous trust. Victoria's composure cracked. You can't. Already done. Nathan's smile was sharp. The board is very interested in the evidence we've provided about the chemical dumping. And the FBI is particularly keen on those accident scene photos you mentioned. Tampering with evidence, obstruction of justice. You would betray your own mother? You betrayed yourself, Nathan said quietly. Every crime, every cover-up, every manipulation, it all ends now. Victoria turned to Olivia, her mask finally shattering. You did this. Turned my son against me. Destroyed my life's work. No, Olivia stepped forward, letting the harsh morning light fall full on her scarred face. You did this. The night you decided my brother's life was worth less than your corporate secrets. The night you left me to die in that car. Every scar on my face is a record of your crimes. Those scars make you a monster, Victoria spat. These scars make me a survivor. Olivia's voice was steel. And now the whole world will know exactly how I got them. The elevator chimed one final time. FBI agents flooded the penthouse. Victoria Harrison? The lead agent stepped forward. We have some questions about the night of Michael Bennett's death. As they led Victoria away, she turned back. Nathan, please. Everything I did was for you. For our family. Nathan took Olivia's hand, his thumb brushing over her scars. No, Mother. Everything you did was for power. And now you've lost it all. James Bennett slumped in a chair, watching his former rival being handcuffed. All those years of business deals and social climbing? For what? For truth, Olivia said softly. She touched her father's shoulder. Michael would have wanted that. Outside, the media frenzy continued. Photos of Olivia's scars filled every screen, but now alongside headlines about corporate crime and justice served. The mystery bride's face had become a symbol of something larger. The cost of silence, the price of truth. Nathan pulled Olivia to the window. In the reflection, their faces overlapped. His unmarked, hers scarred, both forever changed. Ready to face them? He asked. Olivia looked at her reflection, really looked, for the first time since the accident. Yes, she said. No more hiding. No more veils. They stepped into the elevator together, leaving behind shattered mirrors and broken empires, ready to build something new from the wreckage of their family's sins. I can't stay. The words hung in the pre-dawn air of the penthouse. Nathan stood frozen, watching Olivia pack a small suitcase. Everything we've built, everything we've overcome, his voice trailed off, was built on revenge and secrets. Olivia turned to face him, her scars catching the first light of dawn. We took down Victoria, exposed the truth, got justice for Michael. But this marriage, us, it's all tangled up in that darkness. It became more than that, Nathan argued. You know it did. That's why I have to go. She touched his face gently. We need to know who we are without the weight of our family's sins. Across town, Victoria Harrison sat in her private cell at the Metropolitan Detention Center, watching her son enter the visiting area. Her designer outfit had been replaced by prison orange, but her spine was still steel. The board meeting is today, Nathan said without preamble. They're voting on the complete restructuring of Harrison Industries. Come to gloat. Victoria's smile was brittle. No. Come to say goodbye. He placed a document between them. I'm stepping down as CEO, selling my shares, breaking free of the Harrison name entirely. For the first time, genuine emotion cracked Victoria's facade. Everything I built was built on blood money and buried bodies. Nathan stood. Goodbye, Mother. I hope you find peace with what you've done. Meanwhile, Olivia stood in her childhood home, facing her father across his study. You don't have to leave, James Bennett pleaded. The scandal's dying down. With Victoria in jail and the company restructuring. That's exactly why I need to go. Olivia ran her fingers along the spines of old photo albums. All my life I've been defined by this family. By tragedy. By these scars. I need to know who I am beyond all that. Where will you go? There's a restoration project in New Orleans. Historic buildings damaged by storms. They need architects who understand how to rebuild broken things. She smiled slightly. Seems fitting. Back at Harrison Industries, Nathan faced the board. The Environmental Cleanup Fund will be our top priority. Every family affected by the chemical dumping will be compensated. Every town will be restored. And the company name? A board member asked. Change it. Burn the Harrison legacy to the ground if you have to. Build something better from the ashes. Later that night, Olivia found him sitting in his darkened penthouse. Your father told me about New Orleans, he said quietly. Nathan. No, listen. He stood, keeping distance between them. You're right. About all of it. We built this relationship in shadow, seeking vengeance. Now we need light. Need to find ourselves. And after? Her voice was soft. After, if we find our way back to each other, it will be as whole people. Not broken pieces trying to fit together. She reached up, tracing her scars in the dimness. I spent so long hiding these. Hiding myself. And now I want to build beautiful things. Help other broken things heal. She moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. What about you? I'm starting a foundation. Supporting environmental whistleblowers, corporate accountability. Making sure no other families suffer like ours did. The silence between them was different now. Not heavy with secrets, but light with possibility. I do love you, Olivia whispered. That part was real. Real enough to need time to grow in sunlight. Nathan didn't move to touch her, though his hands ached too. Go build your beautiful things, Olivia. Find yourself in the broken places. And you? What will you find? The man I should have been all along. Someone worthy of loving you in the light. Dawn was breaking as Olivia's cab pulled away from the penthouse. In her purse, a photo of her and Michael as children. In her heart, the memory of Nathan's kiss goodbye, not an ending but a beginning. Nathan watched her go from the window, then turned to his laptop. The foundation's homepage glowed on the screen, the Michael Bennett Whistleblower Protection Fund. His phone buzzed, A message from the prison. Victoria was demanding to see him. He deleted it without reading further. Some chains needed to be broken completely. In her cab, Olivia touched her scars one last time, then pulled out her sketchbook. On the blank page, she began to draw. Broken buildings made beautiful again, scars transformed into strength. Above Manhattan, the sun rose fully, casting long shadows behind them as they moved in opposite directions, each seeking their own truth in the breaking light of day. A text lit up both their phones simultaneously. An article about Victoria's case. More evidence had been uncovered. More families coming forward. The past wasn't finished with them yet. But for now, for this moment, they were moving forward. Breaking free. Becoming who they needed to be. Only then could they hope to find their way back. And this beam here? The young architecture student traced the exposed wooden support with wonder. It's original? From 1853. Olivia smiled, touching the scarred wood. Hurricane damage, termites, time, it's been through hell. But with proper restoration, it's stronger than ever. She turned to her student group, no longer flinching from their curious glances at her scars. Sometimes the most beautiful things are those that have survived damage. 6 months had passed since she'd left Manhattan. The historic mansion restoration project in New Orleans had become her sanctuary, her classroom, her redemption. Each broken building she helped heal taught her something about her own reconstruction. Her phone buzzed. A news alert about Harrison Industries, now rebranded as Phoenix Sustainable Solutions. Nathan's face filled the screen, speaking at a press conference. Today we're announcing a nationwide initiative to rehabilitate communities affected by corporate environmental damage. The Phoenix Foundation will be partnering with local restoration experts. Olivia clicked it off, but not before noticing how different he looked. Lighter somehow. The weight of the Harrison legacy lifted from his shoulders. Meanwhile, in a Phoenix Solutions conference room, Nathan wrapped up the board meeting. One last item, he said, pulling up a presentation. The New Orleans Heritage Project. They're doing groundbreaking work in architectural restoration, particularly in communities affected by natural disasters. I think they'd be perfect partners for our rehabilitation initiative. Isn't that where your wife, a board member, caught himself? Sorry? Ex-wife. Olivia Bennett is their lead architect, yes. Nathan's voice was steady. And she's the best in the field. Our past connection shouldn't prevent Phoenix from working with the best. Later that evening, Olivia sat on the balcony of her French Quarter apartment, sketching preliminary designs for a damaged church. Her phone lit up with a text from Sarah, Michael's former fiancée. Saw Nathan's press conference. The foundation's doing amazing work. Michael would be proud of you both. Olivia's fingers traced her scars absently as she typed back. We're trying to build something good from all the broken pieces he left behind. A knock at her door interrupted her reply. She opened it to find Claire, her project manager, practically bouncing with excitement. Phoenix Solutions wants to partner with us. Claire thrust a proposal document at her. Full funding for 10 more restorations, plus a training program for local youth. She stopped, seeing Olivia's expression. Oh, I didn't think about, should I turn them down? Olivia took the proposal, remembering Nathan's words from 6 months ago. If we find our way back to each other, it will be as whole people. No, she said softly. Phoenix is doing good work. We shouldn't let the past prevent that. Their CEO wants to meet next week. To discuss the partnership. Olivia's heart stuttered. Here? Actually, he suggested neutral ground. The climate change conference in Chicago. All the major environmental and restoration organizations will be there. Back in Manhattan, Nathan stood at his office window, holding a similar invitation. His assistant's voice crackled over the intercom. The New Orleans team confirmed for Chicago, including their lead architect. Nathan touched the glass, remembering another window, another city, another version of himself. Thank you, Janet. Book everything. That night, both Olivia and Nathan found themselves looking at the same photo. Their wedding day, her face still veiled, both of them wrapped in secrets and revenge. Olivia studied her reflection in her balcony window, scars silvered in the New Orleans moonlight. She no longer saw tragedy in them, but triumph, survival, strength. Nathan, in his newly minimalist apartment, looked at the foundation's latest impact report. Communities cleaned up. Whistleblowers protected. Justice served. Not revenge, but restoration. Their phones buzzed simultaneously, another Victoria update. She was appealing her conviction. Looking for one last fight. But this time the news didn't shake them. Their foundations were stronger now, built on truth instead of deception. Olivia turned back to her church restoration sketches, adding a detail: broken stained glass repaired with gold, like the Japanese art of kintsugi. Beauty in the mending. Nathan finalized the Phoenix partnership proposal, including a personal note. Some things that break can be rebuilt stronger. Some scars tell stories of healing, not just hurt. A week later, they both packed for Chicago. Olivia chose a dress the color of New Orleans twilight, no longer hiding her scars but wearing them like battle honors. Nathan selected a tie the exact shade of the Phoenix logo, rising from ashes, renewed. Their paths, separate but stronger, were about to cross again. Not in the shadow of family empires and buried secrets, but in the light of who they'd become. Above New Orleans, a hurricane warning lifted. Above Manhattan, the morning sun caught the Phoenix Solutions sign, making it glow like dawn. And somewhere between these cities, in the space between breaking and rebuilding, two people who had learned to stand alone prepared to discover if they could stand together. This time, not in darkness but in light. This time, not seeking revenge but restoration. This time as themselves. The Chicago Conference Center hummed with activity, but Olivia and Nathan's first reunion happened in silence. They spotted each other across the crowded lobby, she in her twilight blue dress, he in his Phoenix red tie, and for a moment, everything else faded away. No veils, no secrets, no shadows. Just two people who had walked through fire and emerged stronger. Your scars? Nathan said when they finally stood face to face. They've healed. Time does that. Olivia smiled. And purpose. The New Orleans restoration projects, they're extraordinary. As is Phoenix Solutions' Environmental Justice Initiative. She touched his tie. Rising from ashes suits you. Before they could say more, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. James Bennett and Victoria Harrison, newly released on appeal, had arrived separately but simultaneously. Olivia, sweetheart. James hurried forward. When I heard about the Phoenix partnership. Save it, Dad. Olivia's voice was firm but not unkind. I'm here as a professional, not as your daughter or anyone's wife. Victoria's laugh cut through the tension. How dramatic. Though I must say, darling, displaying those scars so boldly is a bit much. Mother. Nathan's quiet voice carried warning. You're only here because your appeal terms allow it. Don't push it. I'm here because I still own shares in Phoenix Solutions, Victoria snapped. Shares that could easily be voted against this charitable waste of resources. Actually, a new voice joined them. Sarah Chin stepped forward, Michael's old files in her hands. That's not true anymore. The next few minutes were a blur of revelations. Sarah, working with the FBI, had uncovered offshore accounts Victoria had hidden. Accounts that proved she'd been embezzling from Harrison Industries for years. The board voted this morning, Nathan said quietly. Your shares are forfeit. It's over, Mother. For real this time. Victoria's mask finally cracked completely. You ungrateful. Mrs. Harrison. Olivia's voice cut through the brewing storm. Look around. Look what your son has built from the ruins of your empire. Phoenix Solutions is leading corporate environmental reform. The Michael Bennett Foundation protects whistleblowers. We're healing the damage you caused. And you? Victoria sneered. Playing architect in New Orleans? Restoring what storms have broken. Olivia stood straighter. Something you never understood. Real power isn't in destroying things. It's in rebuilding them. James Bennett stepped forward. Olivia, I know I failed you. Failed Michael. But please. You did fail us, Dad. But that's not the end of the story. She took Nathan's hand. We all get to choose how we rebuild. The conference keynote speaker began calling people to their seats. Victoria turned to go, escorted by her appeal supervisor, but paused. You'll never escape what I made you, she said to Nathan. Either of you. No, Nathan agreed. But we'll transform it. Like Phoenix from flame. Like broken buildings made beautiful again. After the crowds dispersed, Olivia and Nathan found themselves in the conference center's rooftop garden. The Chicago skyline glittered around them like stars. I got your proposal, Olivia said. For the partnership. And? It's good. Really good. But. She turned to face him fully. I need to know this isn't about us. About trying to rebuild what we were. It's not. He touched her cheek, tracing a scar gently. We can't rebuild what we were. We have to build something new. And if I say yes to the partnership? Then Phoenix Solutions gets the best restoration architect in the business. His smile was soft. And maybe maybe we get to know each other. The real versions. No veils. No vengeance. No family legacies. Just us. Just us. She pulled out her sketchbook, showed him the church restoration design. Broken stained glass repaired with gold. Kintsugi, he recognized. The art of beautiful scars. Some things break so they can be rebuilt stronger. She closed the distance between them. Some people too. Their kiss was nothing like their first. No veils, no secrets, no desperate revenge plots. Just truth, hard-won and precious. Below, the conference continued. Phoenix Solutions and the New Orleans Heritage Project would announce their partnership. Victoria would return to face new charges. James would begin his own journey of redemption. But up here, beyond the veils of the past, two people who had learned to rebuild themselves found something unexpected in the ruins of their old lives. A foundation strong enough to build something new. Something true. Something beautiful. We'd love to hear how this story resonated with you. What did you think about Olivia's journey from a veiled bride seeking revenge to a woman proud of her scars and the strength they represent? Do you believe that broken things and people can truly be rebuilt stronger? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives that explore the depths of human resilience.